You don't win by chance, you win by preparation so thorough. The outcome becomes irrelevant. The greatest warriors don't enter battle hoping to win. They enter already having won. Victory is not in the moment of the clash. It's in the moments before, in the training, in the observation, in the stillness. The one who prepares while others drift will always strike first and last. Musashi knew this. He won duel after duel, not with brute force, but with ruthless clarity. You want to win? Then begin before the beginning. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? You don't win by chance. You win by preparation so thorough, the outcome becomes irrelevant. The greatest warriors don't enter battle hoping to win. They enter already having won. Victory is not in the moment of the clash. It's in the moments before, in the training, in the observation, in the stillness. The one who prepares while others drift will always strike first and last. Musashi knew this. He won duel after duel, not with brute force, but with ruthless clarity. You want to win? Then begin before the beginning. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind, and tell us, where are you watching from? Listen carefully. Before you lift a blade, train your thinking. The outcome lives in your intention. This is the first principle. Victory begins in the mind, not in the sword. Most men think battle is about the body. They are wrong. Battle is about clarity. It is about seeing what others cannot see. It is about knowing the end before the beginning starts. The sword is merely the tool. The mind is the weapon. I have fought over 60 duels. I have never lost. Not once. Do you think this was luck? Do you think this was strength alone? No, it was preparation. It was the mind trained to see victory before the first step was taken. When I walked onto the field at Ganryu Island to face Sasaki Kojiro, the greatest swordsman of his generation, I had already won. Not because I was stronger, not because my technique was superior. I had won because my mind was clear, my intention was pure, my preparation was complete. Here's what most people don't understand about winning. They think it happens in the moment of action. They believe victory comes from quick reflexes, from natural talent, from luck. They are mistaken. Victory comes from the mind that has already seen every possibility, the mind that has rehearsed every scenario, the mind that enters conflict knowing the outcome because it has already lived it 1,000 times in thought. Your enemy may have trained his body for years. He may have perfected his technique. He may have won countless battles, but if his mind is scattered, if his intention is unclear, if his preparation is incomplete, he has already lost. You will defeat him not with your sword, but with your clarity. But let me ask you this, how do you train a mind for victory? First, you must understand what victory truly means. Victory is not defeating your opponent. Victory is becoming so prepared, so clear, so intentional that defeat becomes impossible. It is the state of mind that sees all outcomes and fears none of them. Most men fear defeat. This fear clouds their judgment. It makes them hesitant. It makes them predictable. The warrior who has trained his mind for victory does not fear defeat, because he has already accepted it as a possibility and planned beyond it. He fights not to avoid losing, but to achieve his purpose. Second, you must learn to see without attachment. Watch your thoughts as you would watch clouds passing overhead. Notice them, study them, but do not become them. Your mind must be like water, fluid, adaptable, taking the shape of whatever container holds it, but never losing its essential nature. When facing an opponent, you must see him clearly, not as you wish him to be, not as you fear him to be, but as he truly is, his strengths, his weaknesses, his patterns, his intentions. You cannot fight what you do not see, and you cannot see clearly if your mind is clouded by emotion, by expectation, by attachment to any particular outcome. The mind that wins is the mind that remains calm while everything around it moves in chaos. It is the eye of the storm, peaceful, observant, ready. This stillness is not emptiness. It is the presence of complete awareness. It is the mind that sees everything and reacts to nothing until the moment of action arrives. Then it moves with the precision of lightning, the power of thunder, the inevitability of gravity. I remember my first serious duel. I was young, eager. My mind was filled with thoughts of glory, of proving myself, of what others would think. I nearly lost because of this mental noise. My opponent was skilled but not exceptional. What nearly defeated me was my own scattered thinking. In that moment I learned the greatest lesson of warfare. The battle is won or lost in the mind before the first move is made. Train your mind like you train your body, with discipline, with intention, with relentless focus on the outcome you have already decided to achieve. Awareness without attachment is your greatest advantage. Be sharp, be fluid. This is the second principle of victory. The warrior sees all but clings to nothing. Most men see only what they expect to see. They look for patterns that comfort them. They search for familiar movements, predictable attacks, comfortable distances. This expectation blinds them. It makes them vulnerable. They become prisoners of their own assumptions. I learned this lesson not from a master, but from a cat. I watched it hunt a mouse. The cat did not chase with desperation. It did not force the attack. It simply observed, perfectly still, perfectly aware. When the mouse revealed its path, the cat moved. One strike, clean, final. The cat attached to nothing, not to the idea of when the mouse should move, not to how the mouse should behave, not even to the outcome of the hunt. It simply watched. And in that pure observation, it found its moment. You must become this cat. Your eyes must see everything, your opponent's breathing, the shift of weight in their stance, the micro-expressions that reveal their intentions. But your mind must attach to none of it. No expectations, no assumptions, no desperate need for any particular outcome. Here's what most people don't understand about observation. They think watching means staring intently at one thing. They fix their gaze on the sword hand, or the feet, or the eyes. This fixed attention creates blind spots. While you stare at the sword, you miss the subtle preparation in the shoulders. While you focus on the eyes, you miss the weight shifting to the back foot. True seeing is peripheral. It is soft focus that encompasses everything without grasping anything. It is the awareness that notices the whole battlefield, the ground beneath your feet, the wind direction, the quality of light, the rhythm of your opponent's breathing, the tension in their jaw, the angle of their blade. But seeing is only half the skill. The other half is remaining unattached to what you see. When you observe your opponent favoring their left side, do not immediately plan to attack the right. When you notice they always counter with the same sequence, do not prepare only for that sequence. See the pattern, note it, but remain free to respond to whatever actually occurs. Attachment creates rigidity. Rigidity creates predictability. Predictability creates defeat. I once fought a man who had studied my previous duels. He knew my preferred techniques. He had planned counters for my typical attacks. He was attached to his knowledge of me. This attachment blinded him to who I was. In that moment, I had evolved. My approach had changed. While he fought the Musashi of yesterday, I defeated the him of today. Your opponent is not the sum of their past actions. They are what they are in this moment, on this ground, in this light, with this wind, under this pressure. See them as they are now. Not as they were, not as they might be, as they are. But let me ask you this. How do you develop this fluid awareness? First, practice seeing without judging. When you watch people, resist the urge to categorize them immediately. Don't label them as aggressive or defensive, skilled or clumsy, dangerous or harmless. Simply observe their movement, their energy, their presence. Let the information flow through your awareness without sticking to preconceived notions. Second, expand your peripheral vision. Most people focus like a spotlight, intense but narrow. Learn to perceive like the moon, soft light that illuminates the entire landscape. Practice watching multiple objects simultaneously without losing awareness of any single one. Third, release your need to be right about what you see. Sometimes your initial assessment will be wrong. Sometimes your opponent will surprise you. This is not failure, this is information. Use it, adapt to it. But do not cling to your original perception when new evidence appears. The master swordsman sees his opponent's blade, but does not become hypnotized by it. He notices the footwork, but does not assume the pattern will continue. He reads the body language, but remains open to deception. He gathers all information while depending on none of it completely. This is the paradox of combat awareness. You must care enough to observe everything, but not care so much that observation becomes attachment. You must be interested but not invested, alert but not anxious, prepared but not rigid. When you achieve this state, something remarkable happens. You begin to see openings that were invisible before. You notice opportunities that attachment would have obscured. You respond to what is actually happening rather than what you thought should happen. This is how you become unpredictable while making your opponent completely predictable. They cannot surprise someone who expects nothing and sees everything. He who knows the terrain wins without effort. Study the landscape, external and internal. This is the third principle. Victory belongs to the one who understands the ground beneath their feet and the ground within their mind. Most warriors focus only on their opponent. They study techniques, they analyze fighting styles, they memorize counters and combinations. But they ignore the stage where the performance will unfold. This ignorance costs them dearly. The ground has moods, it has preferences, it has secrets that reveal themselves only to those who listen. Rocky terrain favors different footwork than soft earth. Uphill slopes change the dynamics of every strike. Wet ground alters timing. Wind direction affects balance. The sun's position determines who fights blind and who sees clearly. I remember the duel at Ganryu Island. Sasaki Kojiro arrived. First, he claimed the higher ground, positioned himself with the sun at his back. He understood terrain, but only the external kind. He mastered the physical advantages while remaining ignorant of the landscape within himself. I arrived late, deliberately. I observed not just the physical ground, but the emotional terrain. Kojiro was irritated by my delay. His breathing had changed. His stance had tightened. The longer he waited, the more his internal landscape shifted from confidence to frustration. By the time I drew my wooden sword, I knew both battlefields, the island and his mind. But let me ask you this. What terrain are you fighting on right now? Not just the physical space around you, but the psychological landscape within you. Are you fighting on the high ground of confidence or the swampland of self-doubt? Are you positioned in the clear field of focused attention or lost in the fog of scattered thinking? Your internal terrain changes throughout the day. Morning clarity becomes afternoon fatigue. Confidence shifts to uncertainty. Calm transforms into urgency. The warrior who wins pays attention to these changes. He maps his internal landscape as carefully as he studies the external battlefield. Here's what most people don't understand about terrain. They think it's fixed, static, something to adapt to but never to influence. They are wrong. Terrain is dynamic. It responds to pressure. It can be shaped. It can be turned from disadvantage to advantage by the one who understands its nature. If the ground is slippery, you can use that slipperiness to create unexpected angles of attack. If the space is confined, you can use that confinement to limit your opponent's options. If the light is poor, you can move in ways that make you harder to track while keeping your opponent visible. The same principle applies to internal terrain. If you're feeling uncertain, you can use that uncertainty to remain more open to possibilities. If you're experiencing anger, you can channel that energy into focused intensity. If you're tired, you can fight from economy of movement rather than explosive power. But first, you must recognize the terrain truthfully. No wishful thinking, no denial, no pretending the ground is different than it actually is. See what is, work with what is, turn what is into advantage. When I fought in the rain, I did not curse the weather. I studied how water affected footwork, how wet handles changed grip dynamics, how limited visibility altered timing. I adapted my entire approach to the reality of wet combat. My opponent continued fighting as if it were a sunny day. The rain became my ally and his enemy. This is practical terrain mastery. You cannot change the conditions, but you can change your relationship to them. You cannot always choose the battlefield, but you can always choose how to fight on whatever battlefield you find. Study the space around you. Is it open or confined, flat or uneven, noisy or quiet, bright or dim? These factors will influence every aspect of your performance. Plan accordingly, position accordingly, move accordingly. Study the space within you. Are you hungry or satisfied? Rested or tired? Confident or uncertain? Focused or scattered? These factors are equally important. They determine your timing, your risk tolerance, your ability to see clearly, your capacity for sustained effort. Most importantly, study how external terrain affects internal terrain and how internal terrain influences your perception of external conditions. Rough ground makes some people more careful and others more reckless. Bright light energizes some fighters and overwhelms others. Understanding these connections gives you tremendous tactical advantage. The master warrior fights as comfortably in a palace courtyard as in a muddy field. He adapts his techniques to stone floors and wooden decks, to morning mist and afternoon glare. But more than that, he shapes his internal terrain to match whatever external conditions he faces. When the ground is uncertain, his mind becomes more flexible. When space is limited, his spirit becomes more focused. When conditions are harsh, his determination becomes harder. This is not mere adaptation. This is transformation. This is turning every battlefield into your battlefield. Do not prepare for battle when the enemy arrives. You prepare long before. This is the fourth principle. The warrior who wins has already won through preparation that began years before the conflict. Most men train when they feel threatened. They practice when danger approaches. They sharpen their skills when they see the storm coming. This is too late. By the time you see the enemy, your preparation should be complete. By the time the battle begins, your victory should be inevitable. Began training when I was 7 years old. Not because I faced immediate danger, not because someone challenged me to a duel. I trained because I understood that mastery is built in quiet moments, not desperate ones. Day after day, year after year, swing after swing, 10,000 cuts, when no enemy was present, 10,000 more when no one was watching. When I finally faced my first serious opponent, I was not fighting with techniques I had learned that morning. I was fighting with movements that had become as natural as breathing. My sword was not a tool I picked up for battle. It was an extension of my body, forged through years of daily practice. Here's what most people don't understand about preparation. They think it's about learning techniques for specific situations. They practice counters for particular attacks. They memorize sequences for certain scenarios. This approach creates brittle skills, effective in familiar circumstances, useless when conditions change. True preparation is different. It builds fundamental capabilities that adapt to any situation. It develops instincts that respond correctly without conscious thought. It creates a foundation so solid that any technique can be built upon it, any challenge can be met with it. But let me ask you this, what are you preparing for right now? Not just the immediate challenges you can see coming, but the unknown battles that will arrive without warning, the unexpected opportunities that will demand skills you haven't thought to develop, the moments of truth that will test capabilities you didn't know you needed. The samurai trains not because he expects to fight today, but because he might need to fight tomorrow. He sharpens his sword not because it is dull, but because sharpness must be maintained before it is needed. He studies strategy not because he faces a difficult opponent, but because difficult opponents appear without announcement. This is preparation beyond immediate necessity. This is training for scenarios you cannot yet imagine, developing capabilities for challenges you have not yet encountered, building strength for battles you may never fight. Most people prepare reactively. They respond to problems by trying to solve them quickly. They face challenges by scrambling to develop relevant skills. They encounter obstacles by frantically searching for solutions. This reactive approach leaves them always one step behind, always playing catch-up, always fighting. But from weakness rather than strength, the master prepares proactively. He develops capabilities before he needs them. He strengthens weaknesses before they become critical. He builds resources before scarcity arrives. When challenges appear, he meets them with tools he crafted long ago. I practiced cutting with my sword until the movement became unconscious. Not because I planned to cut any particular thing, but because cutting is fundamental to swordsmanship. I trained my stance until balance became automatic, not because I expected specific attacks, but because balance underlies all effective movement. When unexpected opponents challenged me with unfamiliar techniques, I responded with fundamental capabilities that applied to any situation. My preparation was not specific to their approach. It was deeper than any single approach. This is the difference between tactical preparation and strategic preparation. Tactical preparation gets you ready for known challenges. Strategic preparation gets you ready for unknown possibilities. Train your body beyond its current demands. If you can comfortably run 5 miles, train to run 10. If you can lift 100 pounds, develop the strength for 150. Not because you need the extra capacity today, but because unknown challenges may demand it tomorrow. Train your mind beyond its current requirements. If you can focus for 30 minutes, develop the ability to concentrate for an hour. If you can solve simple problems quickly, practice working through complex scenarios patiently. Build mental capabilities that exceed your immediate needs. Train your skills beyond their obvious applications. If you learn to write clearly, you develop thinking that serves any field. If you master basic mathematics, you build logical reasoning that applies everywhere. Fundamental capabilities transfer to unexpected domains. The prepared warrior does not ask, "What do I need to know for this specific battle?" He asks, "What capabilities will make me effective in any battle?" He does not train for the opponent. He expects to face. He trains to become the kind of person who can face any opponent. When preparation runs deeper than immediate necessity, something remarkable happens. You stop reacting to circumstances and start responding from strength. You stop being shaped by challenges and start shaping outcomes. You stop hoping you're ready and start knowing you are prepared. This is why I trained with 2 swords when conventional wisdom demanded focus on one. This is why I practiced with wooden weapons when others relied on steel. This is why I studied poetry and painting alongside swordsmanship. Preparation beyond the obvious creates advantages that cannot be anticipated or countered. The mind must remain still while the world shifts. In calm, you dominate. This is the 5th principle. Chaos is guaranteed. Your response to chaos determines everything. Most men fight chaos with more chaos. When the situation becomes unpredictable, they become frantic. When pressure increases, their movements become rushed. When plans fail, their thinking becomes scattered. They match the energy of confusion with confusion of their own. This approach guarantees defeat. The warrior who wins does the opposite. As the world around him becomes more chaotic, he becomes more still. As circumstances become more unpredictable, his responses become more deliberate. As pressure mounts, his center becomes more solid. He provides the calm that chaos cannot penetrate. I learned this principle not in combat, but in a storm. I was caught on open water when the wind turned violent. Waves crashed over my small boat. Rain blinded my vision. The boat pitched and rolled unpredictably. My first instinct was to fight the storm, to row harder, to struggle against the waves, to resist the chaos with force. This approach nearly killed me. The more I fought the storm, the more energy I wasted. The more I resisted the waves, the more they overwhelmed me. Only when I stopped fighting and started responding did I find my way to safety. I ceased trying to control what could not be controlled. Instead, I focused on what remained within my influence, my balance, my breathing, my decision-making. I moved with the waves rather than against them. I used the storm's energy instead of opposing it. I found the eye of calm within myself and operated from that center. But let me ask you this. Where is your center when everything around you goes wrong? When plans collapse, when deadlines approach, when criticism comes, when expectations are not met? Do you become part of the chaos, or do you become the stillness within it? Do you add to the confusion, or do you provide clarity? Do you escalate the energy, or do you ground it? Here's what most people don't understand about chaos. They think it's something that happens to them. They see it as an external force that disrupts their plans and threatens their goals. They experience it as an enemy to be defeated or a problem to be solved. This perspective creates suffering. Chaos is not your enemy. Chaos is the natural state of a dynamic world. Fighting chaos is like fighting the weather, exhausting and ultimately futile. The wise approach is not to eliminate chaos, but to dance with it. Chaos reveals opportunities that order conceals. In unpredictable situations, new possibilities emerge. Rigid plans become flexible strategies. Fixed positions become fluid movements. The warrior who remains calm within chaos sees these opportunities clearly, while others see only confusion. When my opponent's attack did not follow expected patterns, I did not become frustrated by the deviation. I became curious about the new information. When the rhythm of combat changed suddenly, I did not resist the change. I adapted my timing to match the new rhythm. When familiar techniques proved ineffective, I did not panic. I explored unfamiliar approaches. This is combat calm, not the absence of intensity, but intensity without attachment. It is fierce engagement without desperate clinging. It is complete involvement without losing your center. Develop this calm through practice, not theory. Put yourself in situations that challenge your equilibrium and learn to maintain your center. Anyway, train under pressure until pressure becomes familiar. Practice when tired until fatigue does not compromise your focus. Fight when distracted until distraction cannot penetrate your awareness. The calm I speak of is not passivity. It is not withdrawal. It is not the peace of the mountain hermit who avoids conflict. It is the calm of the warrior who enters conflict fully while remaining internally undisturbed by its intensity. This calm has three qualities. First, it is responsive rather than reactive. It observes what is happening and chooses the appropriate response rather than automatically reacting from habit or emotion. Second, it is present rather than projected. It deals with current reality rather than imagined futures or remembered pasts. Third, it is grounded rather than scattered. It operates from a solid internal foundation rather than shifting external circumstances. When you develop this calm, something remarkable happens in combat. Your opponent's chaos begins to affect them more than it affects you. Their rushed movements create openings. Their scattered attention misses opportunities. Their emotional reactivity clouds their judgment. Your calm becomes a tactical advantage that no technique can overcome. But more than tactical advantage, this calm becomes a way of life. You stop being at the mercy of external circumstances. You stop being controlled by other people's emotions. You stop being overwhelmed by unexpected challenges. You become someone who provides stability in unstable times, clarity in confusing moments, direction when others are lost. This is true strength, Not the ability to overpower chaos, but the capacity to remain centered within it. Not the power to control all circumstances, but the wisdom to respond appropriately to whatever circumstances arise. Not the skill to avoid all storms, but the ability to find peace within any storm. Practice this daily. When small chaos appears, use it as training for larger chaos. When minor pressure arises, use it as preparation for major pressure. When slight confusion occurs, use it as practice for maintaining clarity under greater confusion. Every moment of disorder is an opportunity to develop the calm that conquers chaos. Patience unveils patterns. Watch closely. Every opponent exposes their weakness. This is the sixth principle. In silence, the enemy speaks volumes about his nature, his fears, his intentions. Most warriors rush to engage. They see their opponent and immediately begin probing with attacks, testing defenses, forcing action. This eagerness blinds them to information that silence would reveal freely. They trade valuable intelligence for the illusion of initiative. The master does the opposite. He waits. He watches. He allows his opponent to reveal himself without pressure, without prompting, without force. In these moments of observation, patterns emerge that no amount of aggressive testing could uncover. I once faced a renowned swordsman whose reputation preceded him. Stories spoke of his lightning-fast draws, his devastating combinations, his aggressive spirit. Other warriors feared his intensity and tried to match it with their own aggression. They all lost because they fought his reputation rather than studying his reality. When we met, I did not attack immediately. I stood in readiness and observed. Within moments, his true nature revealed itself. He was indeed fast and aggressive, but only when pressured. When given space and time, he became uncertain. His confidence depended on momentum. His strength required constant forward motion. His silence told me everything I needed to know. The way he shifted his weight revealed his preferred angles. The iwa rhythm of his breathing showed his nervous patterns. The micro-movements of his blade betrayed his unconscious preparations. Most importantly, his impatience to begin fighting revealed his discomfort with stillness. Here's what most people don't understand about observation. They think watching means looking for obvious signs, telegraphed attacks, clear weaknesses. Dramatic tells, these obvious signals are usually deceptions. The real information lives in the subtle patterns that the opponent reveals unconsciously. But let me ask you this. What do you reveal when you think no one is watching? Your natural rhythms, your unconscious habits, your authentic responses to pressure. These patterns exist below the level of conscious control. They emerge when you are not trying to project a particular image or execute a specific strategy. They represent who you really are, not who you want to appear to be. Every person has a signature, a unique pattern of movement, decision-making, and response to stress. This signature cannot be completely hidden, though it can be temporarily masked. The patient observer learns to read this signature like a book written in a familiar language. Watch how someone stands when they think they are unobserved. Notice their breathing patterns when they are not consciously controlling their breath. Observe their micro-expressions when they believe no one is paying attention. These moments of unconscious behavior reveal more truth than hours of deliberate performance. In combat, this principle becomes deadly. Your opponent may have practiced deceptive techniques. He may have learned to hide his intentions. He may have developed sophisticated feints and misdirection, but he cannot completely suppress his authentic patterns. They will emerge in moments of transition, in periods of stress, in instants when conscious control lapses. The key is creating conditions where these authentic patterns can emerge naturally. Do not press immediately for information. Do not force your opponent to reveal himself through aggressive questioning or probing attacks. Instead, create space for him to fill with his natural responses. This requires tremendous discipline. The urge to act is strong. The desire to test and probe is natural. The impatience to get on with it is human. But this impatience costs you invaluable intelligence. The warrior who can wait, who can observe, who can resist the urge to fill silence with action. This warrior gains advantages that cannot be earned any other way. I have seen fighters defeated by their inability to tolerate observation. They could not stand being watched without responding. They could not bear the weight of another person's attention without immediately trying to control or direct it. This intolerance of being observed became their greatest weakness. Practice observing without judging. Watch without categorizing. Notice without immediately planning responses. Let information flow into your awareness without rushing to analyze or act upon it. This neutral observation reveals patterns that involved observation would miss. Learn to read energy as well as technique. Notice how people carry themselves when confident versus uncertain. Observe the differences in their movement when relaxed versus tense. Study how their rhythm changes under different types of pressure. These energetic patterns are often more reliable predictors than technical habits. Most importantly, learn to hide in plain sight. Become someone who can observe without appearing to watch, who can gather information without seeming interested, who can study patterns without alerting others to your attention. The best observation happens when the observed is unaware of being observed. When you master this skill, you gain a tremendous advantage in any competitive situation. You see openings before they fully develop. You recognize patterns before they complete their cycles. You understand your opponent's nature before they reveal it through action. But this principle extends beyond combat. In business, in relationships, in any situation where you must understand another person's motivations, the same truth applies. Those who can observe patiently, who can resist the urge to fill silence with words or action, who can create space for others to reveal their authentic nature, these people operate with information that others never acquire. The enemy defeats himself if you give him enough time and space to do so. Your job is not to force his mistakes, but to create conditions where his natural patterns can emerge and be clearly observed. In silence, truth speaks louder than any technique. Muscle is not enough. Your movement must be trained into instinct. This is the seventh principle. When the moment of action arrives, there is no time for thinking, no space for hesitation, no room for conscious decision. There is only the body, responding from years of preparation. Most people practice until they can perform a technique correctly. This is not enough. You must practice until you cannot perform it incorrectly. There is a vast difference between knowing how to do something and being unable to do it wrong. I practiced my basic cut 10,000 times. Not because the technique was complex, it was simple. I practiced because simple movements performed under pressure become difficult. I practiced because muscle memory must be stronger than conscious thought. I practiced because when your life depends on perfect execution, good enough kills you. Each repetition was not mere mechanical drilling. Each swing of the sword was performed with total attention, complete intention, perfect form. I did not practice moving the sword through space. I practiced moving with killing intent, with precise timing, with absolute commitment to the technique's completion. Here's what most people don't understand about repetition. They think quantity alone creates competence. They count repetitions as if numbers guarantee improvement. They drill movements without drilling the mindset that makes movements. Effective, true repetition trains the nervous system to respond correctly under any condition. It builds pathways so deep that stress cannot disrupt them, so automatic that fear cannot interfere with them, so reliable that exhaustion cannot compromise them. But let me ask you this. What have you practiced to the level of instinct, not just physical movements, but mental responses, emotional patterns, decision-making processes? What capabilities have you developed so thoroughly that they emerge automatically when needed? What skills have you refined to the point where conscious thought would only slow them down? The master swordsman does not think about cutting when he cuts. The movement flows from intention through body without passing through analytical thought. The decision to strike and the completion of the strike happen in the same instant. This is possible only through repetition so complete that the technique becomes part of his nature. This level of preparation requires more than casual practice. It demands what I call serious repetition, drilling with the same intensity you would need in actual application. If you practice casually, you will perform casually. If you drill without pressure, you will fail under pressure. I practiced my techniques when I was fresh and when I was exhausted. I drilled movements in good weather and terrible conditions. I rehearsed strikes while hungry, while distracted, while angry, while afraid. I wanted my body to know these movements so completely that no external condition could prevent their correct execution. This is preparation for the moment when preparation must become performance. In real combat, there are no practice conditions. There is only the reality of life and death, success and failure, victory and defeat. Your technique must work when everything goes wrong, when you are not at your best, when circumstances are terrible. Most warriors train only in comfortable conditions. They practice when they feel good, when the weather is pleasant, when they are well rested and well fed. Then they wonder why their techniques abandon them when conditions become difficult. The serious warrior practices especially when conditions are poor. He trains when he is tired because battles do not wait for rest. He drills when he is hungry because conflicts do not pause for meals. He rehearses techniques when he is stressed because actual combat creates more stress than any training can simulate. This is not masochism, this is realism. If you want your skills to be available when you need them most, you must practice them under conditions that approximate when you will need them most. But physical repetition is only part of the training. You must also rehearse the mental aspects. The key: decision to act, the commitment to follow through, the acceptance of consequences. These psychological elements must become as automatic as the physical movements. I practiced not just the cut, but the willingness to cut. Not just the technique of killing, but the resolve to take life when necessary. Not just the mechanics of combat, but the spirit that makes combat effective. The body and mind must be trained together until they function as a single unit. This integration happens through what I call complete repetition. You do not practice the technique in isolation. You practice it within the context where it will be used. You rehearse not just the movement, but the situation, not just the action, but the decision that precedes action. When you reach this level of preparation, something remarkable happens in actual application. You do not perform techniques. Techniques perform through you. You do not execute movements. Movements execute themselves. You become a conduit for capabilities that have been trained to perfection. Your conscious mind is free to focus on strategy, while your unconscious mind handles technique. Your attention can remain on the larger pattern of combat, while your body responds automatically to immediate threats. This division of labor makes you vastly more effective than someone who must consciously control every aspect of their performance. But this state of automatic competence requires one critical element: trust in your training. You must believe completely in the capabilities you have developed. Doubt introduces hesitation. Hesitation destroys timing. Destroyed timing means defeated technique. When the moment arrives, you must surrender conscious control to unconscious competence. You must trust that 10,000 repetitions have created responses more reliable than thought, more accurate than analysis, more appropriate than conscious decision-making. This is the ultimate goal of serious practice: to develop skills so thoroughly that they no longer require your conscious participation. When this happens, you operate from a level of effectiveness that no amount of thinking can match. Distraction is defeat. Cut everything that does not serve the mission. This is the 8th principle. Victory belongs to the warrior who carries nothing that does not contribute to winning. Most men fight with too much, too many techniques, too Many options, too many considerations, too many backup plans. They burden themselves with complexity that serves their ego but hinders their effectiveness. They mistake quantity for quality, options for advantage, preparation for wisdom. The master fights with less. Fewer techniques mastered completely, fewer strategies understood deeply, fewer weapons carried perfectly. He eliminates everything that dilutes his focus, weakens his commitment, or compromises his clarity. I learned this principle through defeat. In my early years, I tried to master every technique I encountered. I collected fighting methods like trophies. I studied elaborate combinations and complex strategies. I thought comprehensiveness was completeness. I was wrong. In one critical duel, my opponent used only 3 basic techniques: simple cuts, straightforward movements, elementary timing. But he had refined these basic elements to absolute perfection. While I hesitated between 15 different options, he executed his simple techniques with devastating effectiveness. His economy defeated my complexity. That day, I understood the difference between knowing many things and mastering few things. I began the process of elimination that would define the rest of my development. I stripped away everything that was not essential. I cut away all techniques that were not fundamental. I eliminated all strategies that were not direct. Here's what most people don't understand about elimination. They think it means giving up options, limiting possibilities, reducing their capabilities. They fear that cutting away techniques will leave them vulnerable to situations those techniques might address. This fear reveals misunderstanding. True elimination does not reduce your capabilities. It concentrates them. It does not limit your options. It clarifies them. It does not weaken your position. It strengthens your core. But let me ask you this. What are you carrying that you do not need? Not just physical possessions, but mental habits, emotional patterns, social obligations, professional commitments. What complexity in your life serves no real purpose? What options exist only to make you feel prepared, but actually make you less effective? The warrior who masters elimination operates from a position of tremendous strength. He knows exactly what he can do because he has eliminated everything he cannot do perfectly. He moves with confidence because he has eliminated all techniques that introduce uncertainty. He acts decisively because he has eliminated options that create hesitation. This is not limitation, this is liberation. When you carry only what you need, you can move faster. When you know only what you have mastered, you can respond more quickly. When you focus only on what serves your mission, you can act with greater power. I carried 2 swords when other warriors carried 1, but I eliminated everything else. No armor that would slow my movement. No backup weapons that would complicate my decisions. No elaborate preparations that would delay my action. Every element of my equipment served a specific purpose. Everything that did not serve was abandoned. The same principle applied to my techniques. I learned thousands of movements, but kept only dozens. I studied hundreds of strategies, but retained only those that aligned with my natural abilities and fundamental principles. I eliminated everything that was merely interesting in favor of everything that was truly useful. This process of elimination never ends. As you develop, you must continuously refine what you carry, what you practice, what you focus on. Old techniques that once served their purpose may become obstacles to new development. Strategies that worked in past situations may hinder adaptation to current challenges. The key is ruthless honesty about what actually contributes to your effectiveness. Most people keep techniques because they worked once or because they might be useful someday or because they represent significant investment of time and energy. These are poor reasons to maintain anything in your essential toolkit. Keep only what serves you now, in the challenges you actually face, with the goals you're actively pursuing. Everything else is weight that slows you down, complexity that confuses your responses, distraction that divides your attention. But elimination requires more than cutting away techniques. It demands elimination of mental habits that create distraction. Eliminate the need to appear knowledgeable about everything. Eliminate the desire to have an opinion on every topic. Eliminate the compulsion to solve every problem you encounter. Focus your mental energy the same way you focus your physical capabilities. Attend only to what you can actually influence. Engage only with challenges that serve your development. Respond only to situations that deserve your best effort. This selective engagement creates a concentration of force that overwhelms any opponent. While others scatter their attention across multiple concerns, you focus your entire capability on the single most important element. While others divide their energy among many techniques, you direct all your power through the one perfect technique. The eliminated warrior moves with the efficiency of water flowing downhill. Every action serves the mission. Every movement advances the purpose. Every decision brings him closer to victory. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is unnecessary. Nothing exists without contributing to the outcome. When you achieve this level of elimination, you discover something remarkable. You become more capable with less, more powerful with fewer options, more effective with simpler approaches. You realize that mastery is not accumulation. Mastery is refinement. The ultimate goal is to eliminate everything except your essential nature, to strip away all artifice, all pretense, all unnecessary complexity until only your fundamental capability remains. This concentrated essence of your ability is more powerful than any collection of techniques, more reliable than any complex strategy, more effective than any elaborate preparation. Fight with what you are, not with what you carry. Win with who you have become, not with what you have accumulated. This is the path of elimination. This is the way of the essential warrior. You are not above anyone, but you are beneath no one either. This is the ninth principle. True strength comes from the balance between humility and confidence, respect and fearlessness. Most warriors make one of two errors. They either underestimate their opponents, becoming arrogant and careless, or they overestimate their opponents, becoming intimidated and hesitant. Both approaches lead to defeat. The master walks the narrow path between these extremes. I have faced farmers with wooden sticks who fought with such fierce determination that they nearly defeated skilled swordsmen. I have fought renowned masters whose reputations exceeded their actual abilities. Appearance deceives. Reputation misleads. Only the reality of the present moment tells the truth. Respect every opponent's potential to surprise you, to exceed expectations, to reveal capabilities that were not immediately apparent. But fear no one's ability to defeat your properly prepared and clearly focused effort. This balance creates the optimal fighting mind, alert but not anxious, confident but not complacent. When I fought Sasaki Kojiro, many observers expected me to show deference to his superior reputation. He was called the greatest swordsman in Japan. His technique was legendary. His victories were numerous and impressive. But I understood the difference between respecting an opponent and being intimidated by him. I respected his skill, his experience, his dedication to the art. I studied his methods, acknowledged his strengths, prepared for his proven capabilities. But I did not fear him. Fear would have clouded my judgment, restricted my movements, limited my options. Respect informed my preparation. Fear would have undermined my performance. Here's what most people don't understand about fear and respect. They think respect requires deference, that acknowledging another's abilities means accepting inferiority. They confuse recognition of skill with admission of defeat. This confusion creates internal conflict that destroys effectiveness. True respect enhances your performance rather than diminishing it. When you accurately assess an opponent's capabilities, you prepare more thoroughly. When you acknowledge their strengths, you develop appropriate counters. When you honor their dedication, you match it with your own commitment. But let me ask you this. Who are you afraid of that you should merely respect? What challenges intimidate you that should simply inform your preparation? What obstacles terrify you that should merely guide your strategy? Fear transforms manageable challenges into overwhelming threats. Respect transforms any challenge into useful information. The fearless warrior is not someone who feels no fear. He is someone who acts correctly despite fear. He acknowledges the emotion without being controlled by it. He feels the pressure without being crushed by it. He recognizes the danger without being paralyzed by it. This fearlessness comes from preparation so complete that confidence becomes natural. When you have trained thoroughly, when you have eliminated weaknesses, when you have developed capabilities equal to any challenge, fear loses its power over your actions. But fearlessness without respect becomes recklessness. The warrior who fears nothing because he understands nothing will be defeated by opponents he never saw coming. True fearlessness is based on accurate assessment, thorough preparation, and complete commitment to effective action. Respect every opponent's right to compete, their dedication to improvement, their potential to perform beyond expectations. But fear no one's ability to prevent your success if you bring your complete capability to the encounter. This attitude creates tremendous tactical advantage. Respect keeps you alert and prepared. Fearlessness keeps you aggressive and decisive. Together, they create the optimal balance for peak performance under pressure. I have seen fighters defeated by their own arrogance, so disrespectful of their opponents that they failed to prepare adequately. I have seen equally skilled warriors defeated by their own fear, so intimidated by their opponents' reputations that they fought defensively and tentatively. The master avoids both errors. He enters every encounter with complete respect for what his opponent might do and absolute confidence in his own ability to respond appropriately. He fights every battle as if facing a dangerous enemy, while maintaining complete belief in his capacity to win. This balance must be maintained not just toward human opponents, but toward any challenge you face. Respect the difficulty of the task without being intimidated by it. Acknowledge the obstacles without being discouraged by them. Recognize the potential for failure without being paralyzed by that possibility. When you master this principle, you approach every challenge with the optimal mindset. You prepare thoroughly because you respect what you're facing. You perform boldly because you fear nothing that preparation can address. You remain humble because you understand that any opponent can teach you something. You stay confident because you know your own capabilities. The greatest victory is not defeating a weak opponent. It is facing a worthy adversary with complete respect and absolute fearlessness. This kind of encounter, regardless of outcome, develops your character and advances your understanding. Seek opponents who deserve your respect. They will force you to perform at your highest level. Avoid opponents who inspire only contempt. They will make you lazy and careless. But never fear any opponent so much that fear compromises your performance. The warrior who respects all and fears none operates from a position of tremendous strength. He sees clearly because respect removes the blindness of arrogance. He acts decisively because fearlessness eliminates the paralysis of intimidation. He fights with honor because he acknowledges the worth of every opponent while maintaining confidence in his own abilities. This is the path of the balanced warrior, humble enough to learn from anyone, confident enough to face anyone, respectful enough to honor the encounter, fearless enough to pursue victory with complete commitment. The way is in everything: wind, shadow, conflict, stillness. Every moment is a lesson. This is the 10th principle. The master warrior finds instruction in places where others see only distraction. Most men learn only from formal teachers, official lessons, structured training. They believe wisdom comes only from recognized sources, proven methods, traditional approaches. This narrow perspective limits their development to what others have already discovered. They become copies of their teachers rather than originals. Of themselves, the true warrior learns from everything. The way water flows around obstacles teaches fluid strategy. The way fire spreads teaches aggressive expansion. The way mountains endure teaches patient strength. The way wind bends trees teaches flexible resistance. Nature is the greatest teacher for those who know how to observe. I learned timing from watching a woodpecker. The bird did not strike randomly or frantically. It found the rhythm that matched the tree's natural resonance. Each strike built upon the previous one. Each blow was precisely placed. The woodpecker taught me that effective timing is not fast timing, it is appropriate timing. I learned distance from studying a heron fishing. The bird maintained perfect position, close enough to strike, far enough to remain safe. It never moved closer than necessary or retreated farther than required. The heron taught me that proper distance is not about maximum safety or maximum aggression. It is about optimal positioning for the desired outcome. Here's what most people don't understand about learning. They think education happens only in classrooms, training happens only in dojos, instruction happens only from qualified teachers. They miss the constant lessons that surround them every moment of every day. Everything demonstrates principles that apply to combat, strategy, and life. A master carpenter shows you precision and patience. A merchant demonstrates negotiation and adaptation. A farmer teaches seasonal thinking and long-term planning. A child displays directness and commitment to their desires. But let me ask you this. What did you learn today from something that was not trying to teach you? What principle did you observe in nature, in human behavior, in the way systems function, in the patterns of success and failure around you? Every situation contains instruction for those who approach it with the right mindset. The key is developing what I call learning eyes, the ability to see universal principles in specific situations. When you watch a cat hunt, you are not just observing an animal catching prey. You are studying patience, timing, energy conservation, decisive action, and the art of invisible approach. When you observe an argument between neighbors, you are not just witnessing conflict. You are learning about emotional leverage, defensive positioning, the power of silence, the weakness of emotional reactions, and the importance of choosing your battles. This universal learning requires a shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "What is this?" ask, "What does this teach?" Instead of labeling experiences as relevant or irrelevant, approach every experience as potentially instructive. Instead of dismissing unfamiliar situations, investigate what principles they might reveal. I learned strategy from board games played by old men in tea houses. I learned timing from musicians tuning their instruments. I learned balance from watching dancers at festivals. I learned focus from observing artists at work. Every human activity demonstrates principles that apply to the warrior's path, but learning from all things requires more than casual observation. You must study with the same intensity you bring to formal training. Watch closely. Think deeply. Practice what you observe. Test the principles you discover. Integrate the lessons into your existing understanding. This approach accelerates your development beyond what any single teacher or method can provide. You begin to see patterns that span disciplines, principles that transcend specific applications, truths that apply universally. Your understanding becomes broader and deeper than someone who learns from limited sources. Most importantly, you develop the ability to find guidance when no teacher is present. You become your own instructor because you can extract lessons from any situation. You are never without education because every moment contains potential instruction. The master warrior carries this learning attitude into combat itself. Each exchange teaches something about timing. Each opponent reveals something about strategy. Each victory or defeat provides information for future encounters. The fight becomes not just a test of current abilities, but a source of new understanding. This learning never stops. Even after decades of training, new lessons appear. Familiar situations reveal previously unnoticed details. Simple activities demonstrate complex principles. The warrior's education continues as long as his attention remains active and his mind stays open. But learning from all things demands humility. You must be willing to receive instruction from unexpected sources. A novice might demonstrate something you have overlooked. A failure might teach more than a success. An enemy might reveal a truth that friends have hidden. This humility is not all weakness, it is wisdom. The warrior who can learn from anyone and anything has access to unlimited instruction. He develops faster, adapts more quickly, and discovers solutions that others miss because his sources of education are infinitely broader. When you master this principle, you realize that the entire world is your dojo. Every person is a potential teacher. Every situation is a possible lesson. Every challenge is an opportunity for deeper understanding. You are never without guidance because guidance is everywhere for those who know how to recognize it. The way is in everything because everything participates in the same fundamental principles that govern combat, strategy, and success. Your job is not to find these principles. They are already present. Your job is to develop the awareness to recognize them and the wisdom to apply what you discover. Brute force fades. Precision endures. Outsmart before you overpower. This is the 11th principle. The warrior who wins through strategy can fight until he is old. The warrior who wins through strength alone grows weaker with each passing year. Most men believe power comes from muscle, speed, and aggressive energy. They train their bodies to overpower opponents through superior physical capability. This approach works when you are young, strong, and facing weaker enemies. But strength has limits. Speed diminishes. Energy depletes. The warrior who depends on physical advantages fights a losing battle against time. The master develops a different kind of power. He wins through positioning rather than force. He defeats opponents by making their strength irrelevant rather than by matching it with greater strength. He creates situations where technique matters more than raw capability. I learned this lesson fighting a giant of a man whose sword strikes could split stone. His reach was longer than mine. His strength was vastly superior. His sword was heavier and more destructive. If I fought him strength against strength, I would lose. So I chose not to fight him that way. Instead, I fought him with timing. I made him commit to attacks that left him vulnerable. I used his momentum against him. I positioned myself where his strength became a disadvantage rather than an asset. I won not by overpowering him, but by making power irrelevant to the outcome. Here's what most people don't understand about strategy versus strength. They think strategy is what you use when you lack strength. They see it as a consolation prize for the physically inferior. This perspective reveals fundamental misunderstanding. Strategy is not the alternative to strength. Strategy is superior to strength. The strongest man can be defeated by a weaker opponent who controls distance, timing, and positioning. The fastest warrior can be beaten by someone who disrupts rhythm and creates unpredictable patterns. The most aggressive fighter can be overcome by patience that waits for the perfect counter opportunity. But let me ask you this. Where are you trying to win through force when you could win through thinking? What challenges are you approaching with brute effort when strategic thinking would be more effective? What problems are you trying to overpower when you could solve them through better positioning? Strategy begins with understanding the true nature of any conflict. Most people see only the surface elements, the obvious strengths, the apparent weaknesses, the straightforward approaches. The strategic mind looks deeper. It sees leverage points, systemic vulnerabilities, and opportunities that force cannot address. In swordplay, the strategic fighter does not try to cut through his opponent's guard. He creates situations where the guard becomes irrelevant. He does not attempt to overpower defensive positions. He makes those positions untenable through superior positioning. This approach requires patience that physical fighters often lack. Strategy takes time to develop. It requires observation, planning, and often indirect action. The strategic warrior must resist the immediate satisfaction of direct assault in favor of the delayed satisfaction of inevitable victory. But strategic thinking extends far beyond individual techniques. The master strategist shapes the entire context of confrontation. He chooses when to fight and when to avoid fighting. He selects terrain that favors his approach. He controls timing to suit his advantages. He decides which battles are worth fighting and which victories are worth pursuing. I once defeated a renowned swordsman by arriving deliberately late to our scheduled duel. This lateness was not disrespect. It was strategy. I knew he was a morning fighter whose energy peaked early. By delaying the encounter until afternoon, I faced him when his natural rhythm was disrupted and his peak performance had passed. This is strategic thinking at its deepest level. You win before the fight begins by controlling the conditions under which the fight occurs. You shape circumstances to amplify your strengths and minimize your weaknesses while doing the opposite for your opponent. The strategic mind also understands economy of effort. Why use 10 units of energy when 2 units properly applied achieve the same result? Why employ complex techniques when simple ones are more reliable? Why fight long battles when quick, decisive action ends conflicts immediately? This economy creates cumulative advantage. While your opponent exhausts himself through inefficient effort, you preserve energy for the crucial moments. While he wastes strength on impressive but ineffective techniques, you build toward the one precise action that ends the encounter. But strategy requires more than clever planning. It demands the discipline to execute strategic choices when instinct pushes toward immediate action. The strategic warrior must sometimes appear to retreat when others would advance, wait when others would strike, yield when others would resist. This discipline separates true strategists from those who merely understand strategic concepts. Anyone can recognize good strategy. Only the master can implement it consistently when pressure mounts and emotions demand immediate physical response. The ultimate strategic advantage is adaptability. While your opponent commits to one approach, you maintain options. While he follows rigid patterns, you adjust to changing circumstances. While he depends on predetermined responses, you create new solutions for unexpected challenges. When you master strategic thinking, you realize that every apparent disadvantage can become an advantage through proper positioning. Height, reach, strength, speed, all can be turned against opponents who depend on them without understanding their limitations. The strategic warrior wins through understanding rather than overpowering, through positioning rather than forcing, through timing rather than speed. He makes victory inevitable through preparation and planning rather than hoping to achieve it through superior physical capability. This approach creates a fighting ability that improves with age and experience rather than declining with time. The strategic mind grows sharper through accumulated wisdom. The strategic body becomes more efficient through refined technique. The strategic spirit becomes calmer through proven methods. Fight with your mind leading your body, not your body overwhelming your thinking. Win through intelligence applied to action, not action divorced from intelligence. This is the path of enduring effectiveness. Don't just fight their actions, see their intentions before they act. This is the 12th principle. The warrior who responds to what has already happened fights one step behind. The warrior who anticipates what will happen fights one step ahead. Most fighters react to their opponent's movements. They see an attack and respond to it. They observe a defensive position and adapt to it. They notice a pattern and counter it. This reactive approach keeps them constantly following their opponent's lead, responding to initiatives they did not create, fighting battles on terms they did not choose. The master fights differently. He reads intentions before they become actions. He sees attacks forming in his opponent's mind before they manifest in movement. He recognizes strategies while they are still thoughts rather than techniques. He fights not against what is happening, but against what is about to happen. This ability to anticipate transforms combat from reaction into prediction. Instead of waiting to see what your opponent will do, you already know. Instead of responding, To completed actions, you prepare for developing intentions. Instead of playing defense against executed attacks, you disrupt plans before they fully form. I developed this skill through careful study of human nature. People reveal their intentions long before they execute them. The decision to attack appears in the eyes before it moves the hand. The commitment to a particular technique shows in the breathing before it affects the stance. The choice of strategy reveals itself in micro-movements before it becomes obvious action. Here's what most people don't understand about anticipation. They think it requires supernatural perception or mystical insight. They believe reading intentions is a magical ability available only to specially gifted individuals. This mystical thinking prevents them from developing very practical skills. Anticipation is based on pattern recognition, not psychic powers. Every person has habits of thought that translate into habits of action. Every fighter has preferences that appear consistently across multiple encounters. Every human being has tells, unconscious signals that reveal their internal state and upcoming choices. But let me ask you this: what patterns do you reveal without knowing it? What unconscious signals do you broadcast before making decisions? What habits of preparation give away your intentions? What micro-expressions betray your thoughts before you act on them? Understanding your own tells helps you recognize them in others. The key to anticipation is learning to read the preparation phases that precede all significant action. Nothing happens without preparation. No attack occurs without preliminary. Positioning. No strategy unfolds without advanced setup. These preparation phases are where intentions reveal themselves to the trained observer. Watch for changes in breathing rhythm. They often precede changes in energy output. Notice shifts in weight distribution. They usually indicate coming directional movement. Observe alterations in eye focus. They frequently reveal shifts in tactical thinking. These small changes announce large changes to those who know what to look for. But reading intentions requires more than observing physical signals. You must understand the strategic logic that drives your opponent's choices. What does he want to accomplish? What does he think you are planning? What does he believe about the current situation? These beliefs and desires shape his upcoming actions. Put yourself in his position, given his apparent strengths and weaknesses, his preferred techniques, his past patterns, and the current tactical situation. What would you do? This mental exercise often reveals his most likely next moves. People are more predictable than they realize, especially under pressure. I once fought an opponent who was renowned for his unpredictability. Other warriors could not anticipate his attacks because they looked only at his techniques. I looked deeper at his underlying motivations. He attacked unpredictably because he wanted to confuse his opponents. Once I understood this desire to confuse, his seemingly random actions became perfectly logical. This is psychological anticipation. You read not just physical intentions, but mental strategies. You anticipate not just what techniques he will use, but why he will choose them. This deeper understanding makes prediction more reliable because it is based on character rather than just technique. The master of anticipation also learns to control what others can anticipate about him. He manages his own tells, disciplines, his own patterns, and creates deliberate false signals when useful. He shows preparations for attacks he does not intend to make. He displays intentions he has no plan to execute. This deceptive capability creates tremendous tactical advantage. While you read his true intentions accurately, he misreads your false signals completely. You know what he will do, while he thinks he knows what you will do, but is wrong. This asymmetry of understanding decides many contests before they reach the level of technique. But anticipation is not about predicting every specific movement. It is about understanding the direction and general nature of your opponent's developing strategy. You do not need to foresee every detail. You need to recognize the overall pattern early enough to position yourself advantageously. Sometimes the most important thing to anticipate is when your opponent will make their major commitment. Most fighters have a moment when they abandon caution and throw their full capability into a decisive attack. If you can recognize this moment developing, you can prepare the counter that ends the encounter. The warrior who masters anticipation gains time that others lack. While they discover what is happening as it happens, he knows what will happen before it begins. This temporal advantage allows superior positioning, better timing, and more appropriate responses. When you can see intentions forming, you can disrupt them before they fully develop. You can create doubt in your opponent's mind about choices he was certain about. You can make him question strategies he had committed to pursue. This mental disruption is often more effective than physical attack. The ultimate goal is to become so skilled at reading intentions that your opponent feels transparent, as if his thoughts are visible to you. This psychological pressure often causes him to abandon effective strategies in favor of increasingly desperate attempts to surprise you. Train this skill in every interaction, not just combat situations. Practice reading the intentions of people in conversations, in business negotiations, in social situations. The ability to anticipate what others will say or do next is valuable in every aspect of life. When you master anticipation, you fight with the confidence of someone who already knows the outcome, not because the future is fixed, but because you understand the forces that are shaping it well enough to position yourself perfectly for whatever develops. When fear of death fades, you move without hesitation. That's true power. This is the 13th principle. The warrior who has accepted death as a possibility fights with freedom that the death-fearing warrior cannot match. Most men enter combat carrying the weight of attachment to life. They fight defensively because they fear losing what they have. They hesitate because they cannot bear the thought of non-existence. They hold back their full capability because complete commitment might lead to complete loss. This attachment to survival becomes their greatest weakness. The master enters combat differently. He has made peace with the possibility of death, not because he desires it, not because he is reckless with life, but because he understands that attachment to any outcome, including survival, creates hesitation, and hesitation in combat is often what causes the very outcome you feared. I learned this principle through direct confrontation with mortality. In my early years, I fought cautiously, always preserving escape routes, never fully committing to attacks that might leave me vulnerable. This caution kept me alive, but prevented me from fighting at my full potential. Then came a duel where caution would guarantee defeat. My opponent was superior in skill, experience, and physical capability. Conservative fighting would only delay my loss. I realized that my only chance for victory required complete commitment to techniques that offered no safety, no retreat, no second chances. In that moment, I chose to release my attachment to survival, not because I wanted to die, but because I wanted to win. And winning required the freedom that comes only when you stop fighting to preserve yourself and start fighting to accomplish your mission. Here's what most people don't understand about the relationship between death and power. They think accepting death means becoming reckless, careless, or suicidal. They believe that warriors who make peace with mortality are essentially giving up on life. This misunderstanding prevents them from accessing their full capability. Making peace with death is not about seeking destruction. It is about removing the internal conflict that weakens all your actions. When you fight to avoid death while simultaneously trying to achieve victory, you divide your energy and compromise your commitment. You cannot serve two masters effectively, but let me ask you this. What are you afraid of losing that prevents you from fully committing to what you want to achieve? What attachments hold you back from complete engagement with your goals? What fears of loss keep you from risking what is necessary to gain what you desire? These attachments create the same hesitation in daily life that fear of death creates. In combat, the principle extends beyond physical mortality. You must make peace with the death of your ego, your reputation, your comfort, your certainty. Most people fight desperately to preserve these things, and this desperate preservation weakens their ability to pursue what they actually want. When you release attachment to how others perceive you, you can act according to your own judgment rather than their expectations. When you accept that comfort might be lost, you can pursue challenges that develop your capabilities. When you make peace with uncertainty, you can take risks that lead to significant gains. This release is not abandonment, it is liberation. The warrior who has accepted the possibility of losing everything paradoxically becomes harder to defeat. He moves with complete commitment because partial commitment is no longer an option. He strikes with full power because holding back serves no purpose. I have seen fighters paralyzed by their need to survive. They fought so defensively that they created no opportunities for victory. They preserved their lives by ensuring their defeat. Their attachment to survival became the very thing that made survival impossible. The warrior who has made peace with death fights differently. Every technique is executed with complete commitment. Every attack carries full power. Every movement serves the mission rather than self-preservation. This complete engagement often ensures survival because it maximizes effectiveness. But this principle requires careful balance. Making peace with death does not mean ignoring practical considerations or acting without strategic thinking. The freed warrior is not careless, he is fearless. He still makes intelligent decisions, but those decisions are not contaminated by desperate attachment to particular outcomes. When you achieve this state, something remarkable happens to your performance under pressure. You stop fighting against the possibility of failure and start fighting for the achievement of success. Your energy becomes unified rather than divided. Your commitment becomes total rather than partial. This unified energy creates power that attachment cannot access. When you hold nothing back, when you commit completely, when you act without internal conflict, your full capability becomes available. Most people never experience their true power because they never release their attachments completely enough to access it. The death-accepting warrior also gains tremendous psychological advantage over opponents who still fight from attachment. His complete commitment creates pressure that attachment-based thinking cannot handle. His willingness to risk everything makes him unpredictable to those who calculate based on self-preservation. But the deepest benefit of this principle is not tactical. It is spiritual. When you release attachment to survival, you discover that you are not your fears. When you make peace with losing everything, you realize your essential nature cannot be destroyed. When you accept death, you find the part of yourself that cannot die. This realization transforms not just your fighting ability, but your entire approach to life. You stop making decisions based on fear of loss and start making them based on desire for growth. You stop avoiding challenges that might harm you and start pursuing challenges that might transform you. The warrior who has made peace with death lives more fully than those who cling desperately to life. He engages completely with each moment, because he knows it might be the last. He commits totally to each action because partial commitment serves no one. This is not morbid thinking. This is realistic thinking. Death is the one certainty every warrior faces. Accepting this certainty removes its power to control your choices. You become free to fight, to risk, to commit, to engage completely, because you have already accepted the ultimate consequence. When you master this principle, you discover that the fear of death was the only thing preventing you from truly living. The acceptance of mortality becomes the foundation of authentic power. Disrupt predictability. Your timing must confuse, then conquer. This is the 14th principle. Every fighter has a natural rhythm. The warrior who controls rhythm controls the fight. Most fighters develop consistent patterns of timing. They attack at regular intervals. They defend with predictable responses. They move with recognizable cadences. This rhythmic predictability makes them vulnerable to opponents who understand timing better than they understand technique. The master fights with fluid rhythm that adapts to circumstances while disrupting his opponent's natural patterns. He speeds up when his opponent expects him to slow down. He pauses when they anticipate continuous action. He strikes when they think he will defend. He creates unpredictability through deliberate control of timing. I learned this principle by observing musicians. A skilled drummer does not play only one rhythm throughout a performance. He establishes patterns, then breaks them to create interest and emphasis. He uses silence as powerfully as sound. He controls the energy of the entire performance through timing that supports the music rather than dominating it. Combat rhythm works similarly. You establish patterns that lull your opponent into comfortable expectations, then break those patterns at the moment when disruption creates maximum advantage. You use timing as a weapon that strikes the mind before any physical technique touches the body. Here's what most people don't understand about rhythm in fighting. They think faster is always better, that constant pressure creates the best advantage, that aggressive timing dominates passive timing. These beliefs reveal incomplete understanding of how rhythm actually functions in conflict. Effective rhythm is not about speed, it is about appropriateness. Sometimes the right timing is very fast. Sometimes it is surprisingly slow. Sometimes it is perfectly regular. Sometimes it is completely irregular. The master chooses timing that serves his strategic purpose rather than displaying impressive technical capability. But let me ask you this: what rhythm do you fall into when under pressure? Do you speed up or slow down? Do you become more regular or more erratic? Do you rush toward action or hesitate before commitment? Understanding your natural rhythm under stress helps you recognize how opponents might disrupt your timing. Every person has a preferred tempo for thinking, deciding, and acting. This personal rhythm feels natural and comfortable. When you can maintain your optimal rhythm while disrupting your opponents, you gain tremendous advantage. He becomes increasingly uncomfortable while you remain perfectly positioned for effective action. The key to rhythm control is learning to vary your timing deliberately rather than falling into unconscious patterns. Practice moving fast, then slow, then fast again. Train techniques with different cadences. Develop the ability to pause mid-action, then resume with different timing than your opponent expects. I once fought a master who was famous for his lightning-fast combinations. His attacks came in rapid sequences that overwhelmed most opponents through sheer speed and intensity. Other fighters tried to match his pace and exhausted themselves. I chose to fight him with deliberately broken rhythm. When he attacked quickly, I responded slowly. When he paused to set up combinations, I attacked with explosive speed. When he expected fast exchanges, I created long moments of stillness. This rhythm disruption confused his timing so completely that his superior speed became irrelevant. This is strategic rhythm control. You make timing serve your advantages, rather than playing into your opponent's preferred patterns. You use rhythm to create the conditions where your techniques work best, while preventing conditions where his techniques are most effective. But rhythm control extends beyond individual techniques to the overall flow of combat. Some fighters prefer long, sustained engagements. Others excel in short, decisive encounters. Some work best when action is continuous. Others need breaks to reset and reorganize. Understanding these preferences allows you to shape the entire character of the fight. Force the marathon fighter into brief, intense exchanges. Make the sprint fighter endure longer engagements. Disrupt the rhythm specialist's patterns while maintaining the pace that suits your strengths. The master also uses silence and stillness as rhythm tools. Not every moment requires action. Sometimes the most powerful choice is to do nothing, to create space where your opponent expects engagement, to pause where they anticipate continuation. These moments of non-action can be more disruptive than any technique. Learn to read your opponent's rhythm before attempting to break it. Watch for their natural patterns, how they breathe, how they position, how they transition between techniques. Once you understand their preferred timing, you can begin the process of disruption. But rhythm disruption must be purposeful, not random. Chaotic timing confuses you as much as your opponent. Effective rhythm changes serve specific strategic goals. You vary timing to create openings, to disrupt preparation, to force mistakes, to set up decisive techniques. The deepest level of rhythm mastery involves matching your opponent's rhythm perfectly, then gradually shifting it toward patterns that favor your approach. This subtle manipulation is less obvious than dramatic rhythm breaks, but often more effective because it happens below the level of conscious awareness. When you master rhythm control, you realize that timing is often more important than technique. A simple technique performed with perfect timing defeats complex techniques performed with poor timing. A basic strategy executed with superior rhythm overcomes sophisticated plans implemented with predictable patterns. This principle applies beyond physical combat. In conversation, in business, in any competitive situation, rhythm control provides significant advantage. Knowing when to speak and when to listen, when to act and when to wait, when to accelerate and when to slow down. The ultimate goal is to become completely unpredictable in your timing while remaining perfectly appropriate in your responses. Your opponent cannot anticipate when you will act, but when you do act, your timing is exactly right for the situation you face. Fight with rhythm that serves your mission, rather than displaying your preferences. Use timing as a strategic tool, rather than a mere technical element. Control the tempo of engagement to create the conditions where your victory becomes inevitable. When you can make your opponent dance to your rhythm while they believe they are setting the pace, you have achieved mastery of one of combat's most subtle and powerful weapons. You don't need noise. Your quiet repetition is what makes you lethal. This is the 15th principle. Discipline is the difference between those who dream of mastery and those who achieve it. Most people mistake motivation for discipline. They believe that strong feelings, inspiring speeches, and dramatic commitments create lasting change. They wait for the right mood, the perfect moment, the ideal circumstances before beginning their important work. This approach produces sporadic effort that leads to mediocre results. The master understands that discipline is not emotional. It is mechanical. It is the systematic repetition of correct actions, regardless of how you feel, what you think, or what circumstances surround you. It is showing up when you don't want to, training when you don't feel like it, continuing when you see no immediate progress. I practiced my sword work every day for decades, not just on days when I felt motivated or inspired, not only when the weather was good or my energy was high. Every day, in rain and sunshine, when sick and when healthy, when discouraged and when confident. The daily practice was not subject to negotiation with my emotions or circumstances. This relentless consistency created capabilities that dramatic efforts could never produce. Each individual practice session seemed small and unremarkable, but thousands of these small sessions accumulated into mastery that appeared supernatural to those who had not witnessed the quiet, persistent work that created it. Here's what most people don't understand about discipline. They think it requires tremendous willpower, constant motivation, or special personality traits. They believe disciplined people are naturally different from undisciplined people. This misunderstanding prevents them from developing discipline themselves. Discipline is not about feeling like doing the work. It is about doing the work regardless of how you feel. It is not about maintaining constant enthusiasm. It is about maintaining consistent action despite fluctuating emotions. It is not about perfect conditions. It is about effective performance under imperfect conditions. But let me ask you this. What have you been trying to accomplish through sporadic effort that would be better achieved through consistent discipline? What goals have you pursued with intense bursts of activity followed by long periods of inaction? What skills have you attempted to develop through weekend workshops rather than daily practice? Most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a day and underestimate what they can accomplish in a year through consistent daily effort. The power of discipline lies in its cumulative effect. Small improvements repeated daily create large changes over time. Simple techniques practiced consistently become sophisticated capabilities. Basic habits maintained persistently transform into powerful character traits. I did not become a master swordsman through dramatic breakthrough moments. I became a master through 10,000 ordinary practice sessions that built upon each other incrementally. Each session was unremarkable. The accumulated result was extraordinary. This is the mathematics of mastery. Small, consistent efforts compound, like interest in a savings account. The results are not visible immediately, but they become undeniable over time. Most people quit before the compounding effect becomes apparent because they judge their progress day by day rather than year by year. Discipline also creates internal strength that sporadic effort cannot develop. When you do what you committed to do regardless of how you feel, you prove to yourself that you are more than your emotions. When you maintain consistency despite changing circumstances, you demonstrate that you control your actions rather than being controlled by external conditions. This internal strength becomes a powerful weapon in conflict situations. Your opponent may have superior technique, but if he lacks discipline, his capabilities will deteriorate under pressure. His skills may abandon him when he most needs them. Your disciplined preparation ensures that your abilities remain available. When stakes are highest, the disciplined warrior also gains tremendous psychological advantage. Opponents can sense the difference between someone who has trained sporadically and someone who has trained consistently. The disciplined fighter carries himself differently, moves with different confidence, responds with different consistency. This presence often intimidates opponents before any techniques are exchanged. But discipline must be intelligent, not just persistent. Doing the wrong things consistently is worse than doing nothing at all. Effective discipline begins with identifying the specific actions that actually produce the results you want, then committing to those actions regardless of your feelings about performing them. Study successful people in any field, and you will find consistent patterns of disciplined action. They may have different personalities, different motivations, different natural talents, but they all maintain regular practices that others find boring, difficult, or unpleasant. Their willingness to do what others avoid is what separates them from the crowd. The deepest benefit of discipline is not the skills it develops, but the person it creates. Through consistent action, despite inconsistent feelings, you become someone who can be relied upon, especially by yourself. You develop confidence based not on talent or luck, but on proven ability to do what you say you will do. This reliability transforms every aspect of your performance. In combat, you trust your techniques because you have practiced them thousands of times. In strategy, you trust your judgment because you have developed it through consistent study. In pressure situations, you trust yourself because you have proven your commitment through sustained action. Discipline is often invisible to outside observers. They see only the results, the master's skill, the champion's victory, the expert's knowledge. They do not see the years of daily practice, the thousands of repetitions, the persistent effort through discouragement and doubt. The discipline that creates excellence operates in silence. This invisibility is one of discipline's greatest strengths. While others make dramatic promises and public commitments, the disciplined person works quietly toward goals that may take years to achieve. While others seek immediate recognition for sporadic efforts, the disciplined person accumulates capabilities that will eventually speak for themselves. When you master discipline, you join the ranks of those who shape reality through consistent action rather than hoping reality will accommodate their inconsistent efforts. You become someone who creates outcomes rather than waiting for opportunities. You develop the ability to achieve any goal that persistent effort can reach. The path of discipline is not exciting or dramatic. It is the quiet repetition of correct actions until those actions become automatic, unconscious, and irresistible. It is the choice to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, regardless of how you feel about doing it. This quiet persistence is more powerful than any dramatic technique, more reliable than any burst of motivation, more effective than any shortcut or secret method. Discipline is the silent killer of excuses, the quiet destroyer of obstacles, the persistent creator of mastery. Hesitation kills. Trust your training, or don't step forward at all. This is the 16th principle. Doubt is the enemy that defeats you before any opponent has the chance. Most fighters enter combat carrying uncertainty about their abilities, their preparation, their chances of success. They second-guess their techniques in the middle of executing them. They question their strategies while implementing them. They debate with themselves about tactics while their opponent acts decisively. This internal conflict destroys effectiveness. More completely than any external attack, the master enters combat with complete trust in his preparation, not because he believes himself invincible, not because he ignores real dangers, but because doubt during action serves no useful purpose. The time for questioning is during training. The time for action is during combat. Mixing these functions weakens both. I learned this lesson through a defeat that taught me more than most victories. I faced an opponent whose techniques I had studied extensively. I knew his patterns, understood his preferences, had prepared specific counters for his likely attacks. My preparation was thorough and appropriate. But during the actual fight, I began to doubt my analysis. What if I had misread his style? What if he had changed his approach? What if my counters were incorrect? These doubts created hesitation. The hesitation created openings. The openings led to defeat. I lost not because my preparation was inadequate, but because I failed to trust it completely. Here is what most people don't understand about doubt in performance situations. They think it represents realistic caution, appropriate humility, or intelligent consideration of alternatives. They believe that questioning yourself shows thoughtfulness and prevents overconfidence. This perspective misses the destructive nature of doubt during execution. Doubt during action creates internal division. Part of your mind commits to the technique while another part questions it. Part of your energy moves forward while another part holds back. This division makes decisive action impossible. You neither fully commit to your plan nor fully abandon it for an alternative. But let me ask you this. Where in your life does doubt prevent you from acting with full commitment? What decisions do you sabotage by questioning them after you have made them? What actions do you weaken by second-guessing yourself during execution? What goals do you undermine by doubting your ability to achieve them while working toward them? The time for doubt is before commitment, not during execution. Question your strategies while developing them. Test your techniques during training. Examine your assumptions before they become the foundation for action. But once you choose your course, trust it completely until circumstances require a new decision. This does not mean ignoring new information or refusing to adapt when conditions change. The committed warrior remains alert to changing circumstances and adjusts his actions accordingly. But he does not waste energy on generalized doubt about his capabilities or constant second-guessing of his choices. I practiced techniques until doubt about their effectiveness became impossible. Not because the techniques were perfect, but because I knew exactly what they could and could not accomplish. I had tested them under various conditions, against different opponents in multiple situations. This testing eliminated uncertainty about their reliability. When you know your capabilities through direct experience, doubt loses its power over your actions. You trust your training not because you believe it is flawless, but because you understand its strengths and limitations precisely. This knowledge allows complete commitment within appropriate boundaries. The warrior who acts without doubt moves with tremendous power. His techniques carry the full force of unified intention. His strategies receive complete energy and attention. His timing is decisive because he does not hesitate at crucial moments. This unity of mind and action creates effectiveness that divided intention cannot match. But eliminating doubt requires more than positive thinking or forced confidence. It demands preparation so thorough that trust becomes natural. You must train until your techniques become automatic, study until your understanding is comprehensive, practice until your responses are instinctive. Doubt often reveals inadequate preparation disguised as excessive humility. The fighter who doubts his techniques during combat may need to train them more thoroughly. The strategist who questions his plans during implementation may need to think them through more completely. Doubt can be information about what requires additional development. Use doubt as a guide for better preparation, not as a companion during performance. When doubt arises about your capabilities, see it as instruction about what needs more work. When uncertainty appears about your strategies, treat it as direction for deeper study. But do not carry these questions into combat where they can only cause damage. The master also learns to distinguish between useful caution and destructive doubt. Caution assesses real dangers and adjusts actions appropriately. Doubt questions fundamental capabilities without providing constructive alternatives. Caution enhances performance by preventing overreach. Doubt diminishes performance by creating internal conflict. When facing superior opponents, the warrior without doubt gains his only chance for victory. Doubt against a stronger enemy guarantees defeat because it prevents the total commitment that might overcome superior skill. The underdog who acts with complete conviction sometimes defeats the favorite who fights with uncertainty. This is why confidence built on solid preparation is more valuable than superior natural ability undermined by self-doubt. The less skilled fighter who trusts his training completely often defeats the more skilled fighter who questions his capabilities during action. Train until doubt becomes impossible, then trust your training completely. Act with full commitment to your chosen course until new information requires a new decision. Fight with unified intention rather than divided energy. This is how you defeat doubt before it defeats you. The warrior who has eliminated doubt from his performance operates with a clarity that confused opponents cannot match. While they struggle with internal questions, he acts from internal certainty. While they waste energy on self-questioning, he directs all energy toward victory. But the deepest benefit of eliminating doubt is not tactical, it is psychological. When you prove to yourself that you can act decisively despite uncertainty, you develop unshakable confidence in your ability to handle whatever challenges arise. This confidence becomes the foundation for all future achievements. Doubt is a luxury you cannot afford in crucial moments. It weakens every action, compromises every decision, and undermines every strategy. The warrior who masters doubt gains access to his full capability when he needs it most. Trust your preparation, trust your training, trust your ability to adapt to whatever you encounter. This trust does not guarantee victory, but it guarantees that doubt will not be the cause of defeat. And sometimes eliminating the enemy within is what allows you to defeat the enemy without. The ultimate victory is influence, power that never draws the sword. This is the 18th and final principle. The master who must fight has already accepted a lesser form of victory than the master who wins without conflict. Most warriors measure their skill by their ability to defeat opponents in direct combat. They count victories by the number of enemies they have overcome through force. They prove their worth through demonstrations of superior fighting ability. This approach represents only the most basic level of mastery. The true master develops capabilities that make fighting unnecessary. His presence alone resolves conflicts that would require lesser warriors to draw their swords. His reputation prevents challenges that would force others into combat. His wisdom creates solutions that eliminate the need for violent confrontation. Fought over 60 duels and won them all. But my greatest victory was the conflict that never happened, the challenge that was withdrawn, the duel that was avoided, the enemy who became an ally. These victories required deeper skill than any. Technique I mastered. This is the paradox of ultimate mastery. The more capable you become of winning fights, the less often you need to fight. Your obvious competence deters challenges. Your demonstrated skill discourages tests. Your known capability makes opposition seem foolish rather than brave. Here's what most people don't understand about power that doesn't require demonstration. They think it represents weakness, pacifism, or reluctance to engage when engagement is necessary. They believe that avoiding conflict always indicates fear rather than wisdom. This misunderstanding prevents them from developing influence that transcends force. True power is having the ability to destroy your enemies while choosing not to exercise it. True strength is being capable of overwhelming resistance while finding ways to eliminate resistance instead. True mastery is possessing skills that make those skills unnecessary. But let me ask you this. Where could you achieve your goals through influence rather than force? What conflicts could you resolve through understanding rather than defeating? What opposition could you convert rather than overcoming? What enemies could you transform into allies rather than simply defeating? The highest victory changes hearts rather than just outcomes. The warrior who wins without fighting operates from a position that transcends the typical dynamics of conflict. He understands that most confrontations arise from misunderstanding, fear, or perceived necessity. By addressing these root causes, he eliminates the need for violent resolution. Sometimes this requires demonstrating your capability so clearly that opponents realize the futility of resistance. Sometimes it means offering solutions that serve everyone's interests better than conflict would. Sometimes it involves showing respect for your opponent's dignity while making continued opposition unreasonable. I once avoided a duel by arriving at the appointed place with a wooden sword while my challenger brought steel. This gesture communicated several messages simultaneously. I was confident enough in my skill to handicap myself. I respected him enough to offer him obvious advantage. I was secure enough in my abilities to risk apparent humiliation. My challenger understood these messages. The duel became unnecessary because the wooden sword demonstrated everything that fighting would have proven. My superiority was established without violence. His honor was preserved without defeat. We both achieved our objectives without anyone losing face or life. This is strategic influence, achieving your goals through psychological and social means rather than physical force. It requires deeper understanding than combat because you must comprehend not just techniques, but motivations, not just tactics, but psychology. The master of influence studies human nature as carefully as he studies sword techniques. He understands what drives people to fight and what allows them to avoid fighting with dignity and tact. He learns to address the underlying needs that conflict typically serves. Most conflicts arise because people feel their security, status, or values are threatened. The wise warrior finds ways to preserve these essential elements while eliminating the need for violent protection of them. He creates solutions where everyone's core needs are met. But winning without fighting requires preparation just as thorough as preparation for combat. You must develop reputation, build relationships, understand psychology, and master communication. These skills take as much time to develop as fighting techniques and require equal dedication. The ultimate goal is to become someone whose very presence changes the dynamics of potential conflict. Your known capabilities, demonstrated wisdom, and proven character create an influence that operates before you speak or act. People modify their behavior simply because you are present. This level of influence comes from years of consistent demonstration of competence, integrity, and wisdom. You cannot fake it or force it. It must be earned through actions that prove your character and capabilities beyond question. When you achieve this level of mastery, you discover that most people want to avoid unnecessary conflict as much as you do. They fight because they see no alternative, because they feel cornered, because they believe their essential needs are threatened. Remove these conditions, and you remove the need for fighting. The warrior who wins without fighting also gains something that victory through combat cannot provide: the respect and often the friendship of those who might have been his enemies. Instead of defeating opponents, he converts them. Instead of overcoming resistance, he transforms it into cooperation. This transformation creates lasting influence that force alone cannot establish. People who submit to superior force may comply temporarily, but they remain enemies in their hearts. People who are won over through wisdom and respect become genuine allies. But this principle does not mean avoiding necessary fights. When conflict serves justice, when resistance protects the innocent, when fighting prevents greater violence, the wise warrior engages fully. The goal is not to avoid all conflict, but to fight only when fighting serves purposes that peaceful means cannot accomplish. The master understands that different situations require different approaches. Sometimes you must demonstrate your sword to avoid using it. Sometimes you must fight one battle to prevent 10 others. Sometimes you must accept small conflicts to avoid large wars. This wisdom comes from understanding the true purpose of martial law. Skill, not to defeat enemies, but to protect what matters. Not to prove superiority, but to preserve justice. Not to dominate others, but to serve something greater than yourself. When you reach this level of understanding, you realize that the ultimate victory is not defeating all opponents, but creating a world where such defeats become unnecessary. The greatest warrior is not the one who wins every fight, but the one who makes fighting obsolete through the power of character, wisdom, and influence that transcends force. You already have what it takes. Now go prove it.